watching India Market Close here at NDTV Profit. I am Mahima Vachajani and with me is Sharad Dubey. Well, there you go. As I speak, we've crossed that 26,000 levels. Just 3 points or 4 points odd above that 26,000 levels. I was going to start by saying that, the traders today are trying to tease that 26,000 level and we've, reached that 26,000 level at the day's high point, up 0.4% for the Nifty 50. We did close above the 25,900 levels on Friday, and as Sharad was pointing out, that we've been closing on a higher end for the 5 consecutive, past days, as we've seen on the Nifty 50. Now, slightly above the 26,000 mark, and we'll have to see as to how today's day ends, whether it is going to be above the 25,900 level or above the 26,000 levels is something that we'll have to watch out for. But let's try to pull up the Bank Nifty as well and see as to how Bank Nifty is doing at its day's high point as well, almost at its day's high point, up 0.7%, and this is led largely by the rally that we've seen in PSU banks. Private banks also doing fairly well in trade today, by the way. Let's try to pull up the Nifty 50 heat map and see as to what's changed there. Tata Motors leading that pack, up 2%, followed by Tata Consumer Products. So Tata names doing fairly well. Bajaj Auto, Max Health, Eternal, Eicher Motors, M&M, Maruti. A lot of auto names are doing very well in trade today. Eternal seeing gains of about 1.4% as well. But something that's not doing well includes some names like Geo Finance, Ultratech, HDFC Life, Interglobe Aviation as well as BEL. Let's try to pull up the sectoral heat map because that will give us a picture as to what sectors are doing right now. PSU Bank still leading that chart right now, followed by something like the Nifty Media, Nifty Auto doing very well in trade today. Nifty Private Bank also doing fairly well. Consumption has picked up 0.6%. Nifty Realty also up 0.5%. But something that's slightly not doing well is Nifty Defense, down by about 0.08%, and Nifty Metal almost flat as we speak. Nifty Pharma also flat as we speak. Let's try to pull up the advanced decline ratio because that will give us a picture as to what broader end of spectrum is looking like. That gap has narrowed. We were at around 1,500 odd advances at the 10:30 a.m. or so, but that has come down. So there, the kind of bullish momentum in the broader markets has slightly come down. You have around 1,300 odd advances versus that of 1,000 odd decline. So that 1.3:1 ratio, and the gap has narrowed. Let's try to pull up the mid cap 150 and the small cap 250. The mid cap 150 is still around 0.7% higher in tandem with where the Nifty Bank is. The small cap 250 also up around 0.7%. So both, in line with where the benchmarks are. Let's try to pull up the BSE 500 before I go on to Sharad for the trading strategies. You have Tata Motors PV, which is down 4.7%. Astral on the back of the PVC pricing down by about 3 odd percent. Easy Trip on the back of earnings not doing very well. Arkin Chemicals, Bajaj Holdings as well as KIOCL, some counters down by about 2 to 3% each. But on the other side, Narayana Hrudayalaya doing fairly well, up 10%. You have Equitas Small Finance Bank, RB Infra as well as Just Dial up by about 4 to 7% each. That's with regards to where some of these names are concerned. But Sharad, just crossed that 26,000 levels and hovering around that 26,000 levels. What are the trading strategies looking like?
Well, it's a very strong strategy, Mahima, and especially Nifty Bank. You spoke about the PSU banking, but ICICI Bank and HDFC Bank are also participating in the rally, and they're having roughly 60% plus constituents in the Nifty Bank area. Okay, first I'd like to just point out the key levels which you should be actually watching out for. Nifty, that's around roughly 277 to 280 odd points from its lifetime high level. The support levels, I've given it on the lower side, 25,850, 25,950. Resistance, luckily if the closing is above 26,000 mark, 26,050, 26,080 is the number to look at. Nifty Bank support 58,700, 58,800, and the range for resistance is 59,100 to 59,300 odd numbers. Now I expect this benchmark to remain in a tight range, and the broader indices luckily are outperforming Nifty. Last 3 trading sessions we have seen value buying coming in the small cap space, but overall the market triggers are becoming lesser and lesser. So we can of course expect some reversals also maybe during this day's trade as well. Street is still waiting for US India's trade deal. We saw a spike in last trading session, and overall the global cues are still remaining strong. European markets, however, they have opened mixed. So no clear trend is coming out as most of the global factors are getting digested. And banks, of course, ICICI Bank and HDFC Bank are helping the Nifty Bank as well, as we had just pointed out. So overall, it seems like this market setup is good domestically as well as globally. But how's the technical setup looking like to answer all our queries. We are joined by Sameer Dalal from Natwar Lal and Son Stockbroker. A very good afternoon to you, Sameer. Technical setup sounds pretty good, at least on a medium term basis and even on an intraday basis. What are your views for Nifty and Nifty Bank now?
Okay, so I'm not as much of a technical analyst as I am the fundamental side. So I'll give you my broader view on the fundamentals. For me, basically, I think the markets are trading at valuations which are already a bit rich and a bit expensive, right? Earnings, if you look for the quarters, it's been a very mixed bag. Some have been decent, some have been subpar, but nothing exceptional to speak of. Now, the basic problem we face going forward is what are the triggers? And while you were speaking earlier, you said we are running close to the end of triggers for the short term. Yes, absolutely, we are running short of triggers for the near term because all the the Bihar elections is done. US trade deal is going to get signed. It's kind of put in the price. But you got to remember the US trade deal that gets signed will never be as good as what we used to have before the imports were put in. So it'll always be worse off than that. The question now comes is, how will we be compared with the rest of our neighboring peers who we compete with in exports for those markets? And if it's in the similar lines as them, then it kind of just brings us back to on export front where we were. But on import front, it opens up a lot of avenues for imports to come through, which will probably bring down some pricing in India, which could be margin negative for companies that are doing business in India, right? So we got to look at all of those things. So I think it's going to be buy the rumor and sell the fact when the actual trade deal is signed. The next real triggers for me in the market will be Q3 numbers now, which are probably a month and a half away. But I think that's when we'll first start to see positive upticks from the GST cuts and from all the efforts that the government has been putting in. But for me, even though the market continues to rally the way it is, it's being driven purely by liquidity from domestic market. But there are two big problems when it comes to the liquidity driven market. One, there is a constant flow of IPOs that is happening, which is sucking off liquidity. And two, the FIs continue to sell. So as long as the FIs continue to sell, it would be problematic for the markets.
Right, absolutely. We also have Hemen Kapadia of DR Choksi Finserv joining us now. Hemen, your view is very crucial right now with regards to where the Nifty 50 is concerned. We did touch the 26,000 levels. And right now, 12 points above that 26,000 levels. How sustainable do you think this is?
Well, good afternoon. Thank you for having me on the show. It's always a pleasure. I think 26,100 was the level, 100, 104, where we've turned back twice in the past, Mahima. So, frankly speaking, we need to take out 26,104. On the positive side, you have the Bank Nifty doing well. We are at all-time highs. So outperformance over there. Stocks like Reliance have bottomed out. So things are looking okay. But we need to take out 26,104. Even IT, which was wobbly, has now stabilized. It's forming a medium-term base and things are beginning to look up. So the VIX has also come sub 12. Everything seems to suggest that markets are looking good, but somehow that all-encompassing bull run doesn't seem to be yet. It still seems a bit narrow, but setup is positive. I think as long as we take out 26,100, I think it would be a fillip to the bulls, basically.
Okay, so setup looking positive, but kind of bull run that everybody in the street is expecting right now is yet to come, as per Hemen. Hemen, despite of that, do you have buy calls today? What are the picks that you're looking at?
Yeah, looking at contract call stocks which have come off significantly are at supports with oscillators turning positive. Okay, firstly, a buy call at DMart. It's negative today, but it's virtually fallen off a cliff. 49.52 sub 4,000. Now stabilizing. The daily oscillators have turned positive, giving crossover buys after reflecting positive divergence. So one can buy DMart at 4040, stop loss 3990, target 4140. Second one is Hindustan Unilever, same logic, off from 2770 to sub 2400, has formed a mini base on the daily chart. oscillators have all given crossover buys. Stock seems set for a shorter term bounce. So one can buy HUL at 24.20, stop loss 23.80, target 2500.
So both buy calls coming in from him and HAL and Avenue Supermarts consumption names, interesting. But moving on to our next segment, our stock of the day segment, Tata Motors PV is under pressure of GLR facing setbacks from cyber attack and even US tariffs. Joining us is Puneet. Puneet, can you just give us like the entire reason why the stock has actually fallen? Is it just the FY26 guidance cut or is something more to it?
Well, that is one of the key aspects, but it looks like it will be a tougher turnaround for the counter. And when you likely see the 3 to 4 key reasons, first one's of course that the cyber attacks as well as the US tariff had a big impact on Q2. And subsequently, it seems to be having an impact in Q3 as well. The second key point is that Jaguar and Land Rover has actually gone ahead and cut guidance for FY26 on both the EBIT as well as on free cash flow, which was expected to be near zero in this year, will now be in the negative territory. The third key reason is that the management is expecting that impact on JLR business on Q3 in terms of production. And finally, that the India PV business, that's some silver lining in all of this, but it's unlikely to, offset the drag that we've seen in the Jaguar and Land Rover business. That's the 4 key reasons. So let me first highlight all 4 of them. The first one being the JLR cut. It was 5 to 7% earlier, has been cut to just 0 to 2%. It's a multi-year low in terms of EBIT margins for Jaguar and Land Rover, while the free cash flow is expected to be an outflow of 2.2 billion pounds. FY25 was the first year where the free cash flow was positive for the whole company as a whole when the commercial vehicle division was there as well. So this is going to be a key negative for FY26. When you look at the other impact of cyber attacks, the company has come out and quantified this. They mentioned that cyber attack resulted in a loss of about 196 million pounds, and the tariffs impact, which was there in Q1 as well, was a 74 million pound impact. Now, when you look at the impact of JLR production, 20,000 was the key impact in Q2. We are seeing over 30,000 units that will be impacted in Q3 with the total loss production at 50,000 units. The company sold 4 lakh units in the last year of FY25. So this is a subsequent impact on the business going forward. When you look at the outlook, what they mentioned, they're expecting the PV margins to grow in double digits in the second half of FY26. This will get the PV margins to almost 5%. And we mentioned the guidance for Jaguar and Land Rover, but this won't have the subsequent impact to offset the losses coming from the JLR business. Finally, in terms of brokerages, something like Jefferies is what we've highlighted. They maintained a target price of 300 rupees per share with an underperform rating, and mentioning 2 key points. The first, that they're seeing multiple headwinds for the Jaguar and Land Rover business, including increased competition, as well as what they're seeing in China right now with the increased taxation, and that benefit is now gone. The PV business, as mentioned, is unlikely to see any kind of offset for the JLR drags, and that's largely the reason why the stock is down today. In discovery prices, the PV business did get a higher value, but this is going to be a turnaround story you're going to have to watch for, but wait for a little while for it to actually turn around.
Interesting, the street will be expecting one more turnaround from Tata Motors, and interestingly, if you look at it, almost 70 to 80% of the SOTP valuation comes from JLR. Well, that's pretty interesting on that. Samir, I needed your views on that, especially for Tata Motors passenger vehicles. We have seen largely, you saw kind of a negative impact coming on the earnings. Will this pressure continue more in the coming quarters, or is Tata Motors, PV still not out of the woods yet?
So to say the stock price is out of the woods, I wouldn't say totally out of the woods, but is the worst for the business probably over, this kind of cyber attack and things? I don't see that repeating multiple times. And if it does, then obviously Tata Motors, the management needs to get its act more in order than they have. So like I said, fundamentally, the worst is already in. We know the losses that are going to happen. To be very honest, I'm a little surprised that the stock reacted even a little bit negatively the way it has, about 5% down today, because we knew, the company had very clearly indicated that production losses were there in the second quarter and they were going to continue, and they were just going to scale up operations in Q3. So this is nothing that the street didn't already know. So a little surprised by that, but yes, Given the fact that cash flows are going to be negative, the street doesn't like that at all. It means that you're going to have to raise borrowings because, like you also said, that the bulk of the profitability comes from Jaguar Land Rover, which is now going to be actually losing some money this year. But I think over a period of time, we will see them recoup. The impact that came from the US tax duties is also now going to stop impacting them because the US and UK kind of have a trade deal in place. They know exactly what they're going to have to bear, and they're going to be able to start their exports back to the US, which is a big, sizable, almost one third of the total sales of the for Land Rover. So I think things will start rebounding. Is the stock probably going to go grind a little longer? I think that will probably happen, but I think there is good upside over the next year and a half. So for me, I take a contra call and actually go long on a Tata Motors at this point.
Contra call coming in and going long, as Samir has stated, for the company. But moving on, CBDT chairman Ravi Agarwal has spoken exclusively to NDTV Profit on tax collections, TDS rationalization and steps to reduce litigation. He remains confident of meeting this year's budget target and says more simplification is on the way. Listen in to a slice of that conversation.
You should appreciate it in this manner that the due date for filing the tax return for audited tax return is 10th of December. So at the time of filing the tax returns also self-assessment tax is paid. And then apart from that, there are two advance tax dates also, which is 15th of December and 15th of March. So there also the revenue would come. So then we will be able to sort of compare the trend. The other very important aspect is that the TDS rates were rationalized last year, which would have implication here. Also implication in terms of the reduced refund claims. So it may be reflected that the refunds are, the growth is negative, but maybe that is also because refund claims have also gone down. So therefore the gross collection minus the refunds net, right? The refunds claims have gone down. So therefore we cannot compare just the last year's refunds and the current year's refunds. I am hopeful, I am very sure that by the end when we close the year, we should be able to meet the target.
You rightly mentioned about the TDS rationalization which happened in the last budget. Are you also seeing and planning to do further easy compliance as far as TDS are concerned?
You see, TDS has already been rationalized, and in the Income Tax Act 2025, beginning 1st of April 26, the provisions have been rationalized. It is easy to understand. We are seeing that, okay, what could be a further rationalization or simplification in terms of the compliance, you see. So therefore, once we are coming up with the rules and the forms, we are trying to see what are the pain points where these could be this gap could be plugged, and we are engaging with the stakeholders, the big stakeholders who are filing TDS statements, what is their issue, which is prompting them to file multiple correction statements. You see? So that is also what we are working on. And at the end of this exercise, I think I'm hopeful that once we come up with these rules and forms, it will be a simplified version.
Do we expect any dispute resolution mechanism in the upcoming budget, sir? Any thought process on that?
So far as budget is concerned, I will not be able to make a statement here at this point in time. But we are conscious about putting in place a system which minimizes disputes. And in that direction, last year we came up with this updated returns, you see, concept, wherein taxpayer, in case there is a gap that a person finds or the department finds and communicates with the taxpayer, there is a window for the taxpayer to actually update the return. So that is also one step towards reducing disputes.
All right, so that was the CBDT chairman exclusively speaking to NDTV Profit with regards to where what you can expect this time in terms of where tax reforms are concerned. But moving on, a lot of order wins and MOUs are being signed with the Andhra Pradesh government. And to take a look at what all stocks or what all counters could stand to benefit from these MOUs or order wins and what are actually buzzing in trade today, let's take a look at some of these names. First is Anantraj to invest around 4,500 crore for development of data center come IT park. The stock is up by about 2.7%. Next, you have Trualt Bioenergy. We also spoke to the management of this company today with Andhra Pradesh government for aviation fuel plant. They've signed a non-binding MOU and will be developing aviation fuel plant going forward. You have Raymond. This is setting up 3 manufacturing units in Andhra Pradesh going forward. You also have EPAC Durable, which is set to invest around 1,000 odd crore. Going forward, of course, Raymond investment at that 1,200 odd crore, but you have EPAC Durable that is going to invest over 1,000 odd crores for expansion in Andhra Pradesh. You have Websol, which is going to explore development of 4 gigawatt solar cell plant also there going forward. Premier Explosives to invest about 500 odd crores in defense and aerospace manufacturing in Andhra Pradesh. You also have Garden Reach Shipyard, which signed MOU with Andhra Pradesh Maritime Board. Coromandel up to 2,000 crore of expansion for green ammonia and fertilizer, and something like a PG Electroplast, which is set to invest around 1,000 crores for manufacturing the Sri City. Lastly, Sirma SGS will also be in focus. 1,595 crores of PCB manufacturing plant is something that they're planning to set up. So all of these counters are going to benefit from a lot of MOUs or order wins that have happened with the Andhra Pradesh government. Hemen, I'll quickly come to you. Any of these names, a lot of these names are buzzing in trade today, but any of these names where charts are looking attractive to you?
Well, frankly speaking, not exactly. They are sort of all, all over the place. So there isn't anything which sort of, is compelling or stands out. Some of them, if you take a slightly longer term point of view, I am basically bullish on realty stocks from a longer term point of view. So they all look set to make new highs. So if you have a longer term view, yes, I think something like Anantraj would obviously make sense. But currently, they still are in the throes of a correction, which probably is not yet over.
In this current list from Andhra Pradesh, Anantraj, that is something which Hemen is choosing. But important news flow coming in, and as from agencies, Bangladesh Tribunal has ordered a death penalty to the ex-Prime Minister of Sheikh Hasina, and that's important news flow coming in, and we'll be getting you more details in this segment as well. And it's, I think it's a life imprisonment is also there. One charge is there.
So I think there are 3 charges. Two of those charges are quite serious. The tribunal, Sheikh Hasina was found guilty on 3 counts: incitement, order to kill, as well as failing to take action against perpetrators and liable to be punished is the kind of verdict that's come out. Charge 1, of course, is life imprisonment. Charge 2 is a death sentence for ordering use of lethal weapons, drones, as well as helicopter. And this is the ex-Bangladesh PM that we are talking about here, Sheikh Hasina, sentenced to death. Now, this is not something that we hear, in an everyday conversations. And an ex-PM being sentenced to death is not something which is normal. But that's the breaking news that's flashing on your screen right now. And as I mentioned, there's 2 charges against her. First one being life imprisonment. The second one being death sentence for ordering use of lethal weapons, drones, as well as helicopter. On 3 accounts, this is incitement, order to kill, and failing to take action against perpetrators, and is liable to be punished. So that's, with regards to where this entire development has come in, with regards to where the entire Bangladesh situation is concerned right now. Has been ordered death penalty. We'll have to see as to how this pans out going forward, because there has to be some... This is just a tribunal's
thing, so there might be some other court orders as well. And what's the view coming like for the country and the entire SAARC region, how things pan out? That'll be pretty interesting to see. Of course, some disturbances are definitely there, but let's move on to the markets now. Coming back to the markets, if we can just do the check of the markets, of course, Nifty Bank, that numbers have been touching its record high levels. Just let's get back to the markets. Slight dip coming in, but yes, Mahima had mentioned that 26,000 markets, slight dip coming in, 25,900 odd numbers, and even Nifty Bank, we see a slight dip coming. Samir, in the banking space, they have done really well, and we also spoke about it. But if we had to choose between the PSU banks or the private banks, PSU banks have run up. But is there still more value left if you compare it with the private banks? What are your views on that?
So there'll always be value left when it comes to PSU banks if you compare them to private sector banks, right? Because the valuation gap that exists will remain. Can it narrow? That is the question that we got to ask. And I think we've seen some amount of narrowing, and I think we can see maybe another little bit, maybe another 10% of the gap narrowing, in the sense the price to book multiples could get closer. So there is little more upside for some of the PSU banks, especially the high quality PSU like SBI, like a Canara Bank, like a BOB. I think those could probably move up. But for me, I continue to remain quite positive. I've always remained positive on the banking space, because if we believe that India growth story has to happen without the entire banking and financial sector, I don't think that's going to happen, because the requirement of funds is always going to be there, which eventually has to come from the banking system through deposit growths. So where I would actually focus is not on the guys who is, being able to grow their book, but on the guys that are able to garner good amount of deposits at decent cost. HDFC obviously is one of them that's been able to do that. They've been replacing high cost borrowings with CASA, and that over a period of time will benefit. But then I would also look at mid-cap banks, which we've always said, IDFC First, IndusInd, and Axis in the large cap is something that we also like.
All right. Okay, Samir, thank you so much for giving us those insights. And of course, viewers, it's time to slip into a very quick break, but do stay tuned. Up next, we'll bring you all the chatter behind the dealing room in our segment, Word on the Street.
The NDTV Profit has come a long ways.
You are the new schools and colleges which people are getting access to education from.
ने बढ़िया आपका काम किया, आपके तो नाम में प्रॉफिट लगा हुआ भाई.
In the world of money and markets, the real currency is clarity.
So you guys democratize information, and I think first you seeded the market, now the market is seeding you back out there.
Decisive, discerning, distinct. NDTV Profit isn't just business news.
We are like visiting faculty occasionally who come and get a chance to share what we can, but I think it's a great service.
It's the new language of markets, and the voices that move markets know it. Understand markets, decode money through the masters who shape them.
I think you're trying to get knowledge to smaller cities and towns, making it simple for retail investors. I think what you're doing is also contributing to the Indian capital markets and Indian economy.
When leaders speak of markets, they speak to NDTV Profit.
we unveil NDTV Golf Pro-Am, India's #1 Golf Pro-Am, the course of champions, the conversation of leaders.
What a stellar lineup we have here on the stage of the NDTV World Summit to announce the launch of the NDTV Pro-Am. Arguably India's greatest cricketer, one of India's most distinguished bureaucrats, a top international golfer and also a top Indian pro at the moment, one administrator who is doing
Welcome to India Market Close with Sharad, Alex and myself, Hiral Dadia. Clearly, if you see in terms of markets, an interesting day of trade because we've reclaimed that 26,000 mark yet again. And we're trying to again inch towards that, but 25,994 is where Nifty 50 is trading at. Let's pull up Bank Nifty on the screens because we already hit a record high in terms of Bank Nifty early in trade today, and that's where Bank Nifty has maintained itself. Let's look at the contributors on Nifty 50 as well, the ones which are actually contributing to the kind of gains that we are seeing there. Coming in from HDFC Bank, Eternal, M&M, ICICI Bank, that's what is giving that kind of support. Whereas what's trying to pull broader markets or even markets lower is a Reliance Industries, Adani Enterprises, because of the rights issue, is adjusting its pricing today. ITC also slightly under pressure, as well as Ultratech Cement. In terms of broader markets, let's pull up the mid-cap and the small-cap index and see what they are doing in trade with the kind of surge that's coming in terms of Nifty and Bank Nifty. Again, you have the mid-cap 150 also, which is nearly at the day's highest levels with gains of 0.7% coming in there. And the small-cap 250 at the day's highest levels with gains of 0.7%. So that's what the markets are looking like. But let's also get in Sunil Kaul, Global Emerging Market Equity Strategist at Goldman Sachs, to talk to us about how Q2 has been so far and what could be anticipated going ahead. Sunil, welcome to the show and always a pleasure to speak to you at NDTV Profit. We were just doing a report card analysis of the second quarter. Now, basis our internal assessment versus what Goldman Sachs thinks right now, your initial comments on the second quarter.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. Look, I think the second quarter numbers have been pretty decent. We look at MSCI India universe, which is sort of roughly 160 odd stocks, and second quarter fiscal numbers there have been about 13% year-on-year profit growth, which is better than what we and the street were anticipating, which was around 9% earnings growth. So the season has come in better than expected, about sort of 4 percentage points. If you look at the full year number, it's also tracking at that better than what the historical track record has been, sort of half year into the full year numbers. And so there is a sort of potential for upward revisions for the full year number. And so far, beats higher than misses. The good one of the encouraging data points, though, is that the beats have come in from the top line. So the MSCI India ex-financials revenue growth number is at 8% year-on-year, which is at a 10-quarter high. So the quality of numbers is actually pretty decent. And as I said, the reporting season has come at a decent pace. We do think that trend continues next year, and we are actually looking at earnings growth, which roughly around 10-11% would be for this calendar year. That should improve to about 14% next year, which is a key reason for us being more optimistic on the market.
Hi, good afternoon, Alex here. And so therefore the natural follow-up question to that is that there has been an earnings beat broadly in the second quarter. We're anticipating that the second half and next year indeed is going to be better. At what point do you see that up move in the markets? Because to a certain extent, we're still depressed compared with several markets globally.
Yeah, that's right, Alex. Look, I think, as I said, the September quarter numbers have been decent, but we also know that in some sectors, Obviously, there was a bit of disruption from sort of GST-related inventory destocking, deferrals of purchases, and so some of that will normalize into the December quarter. We're also anticipating the bank numbers to be even better than they have been in the September quarter onwards. And so from December quarter onwards, we are expecting earnings to pick up meaningfully. I would say, look, I think as I said, for MSCI India, our profit expectations are around 14% for next calendar year, calendar 2026, which is broadly in line to a tad better than what we have for the emerging market pack as a whole, which is 15% or so, and Asia. But they are also upwardly distorted by a couple of tech-heavy, AI-heavy markets like Korea and Taiwan, where earnings continue to be at close to 30% plus. And so if you adjust for those couple of markets, India actually stacks up pretty well relative to the region, probably at number 3, number 4, after Korea and Taiwan, which still have very, very strong numbers this year, but also will carry into the next year. So I would say overall, still pretty decent earnings expectations at 14% next year overall.
Hi, this is Sharad here. Sunil, speaking of financials, a lot of good numbers had come in. Even the PSU banks, private banks, they did give a good kind of H2 numbers outlook as well. So how are you looking at this financial space? Where does the risk reward lie right now?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question, Sharad. Look, we have been positive on financials. In fact, when we upgraded our market, India, to overweight a couple of weeks back, we continue to remain positive on financials. We think financials will be one of the leaders in the market. As you said, numbers have been decent. I mean, asset quality has been stabilizing. We think a lot of the measures that the RBI has done over the last, or this year or so, I mean, right from not just rate cuts, but improving liquidity, and then the recent measures about easing bank credit, we think cumulatively a lot of those measures should free up about 2 percentage points of total bank credit into the system. And we think as demand improves, your credit growth should start to improve as well. So we are expecting around 15% compound earnings growth for the banking cohort as a whole for next year. And it's a sector that we know is trading still at mid-cycle valuation. So the risk reward looks pretty attractive on the sector. And we do think financials, along with consumption pockets, would be the leaders of the market in this leg of the rally.
Sunil, that's interesting. You're talking about financials and consumption that will lead the rally probably. Within financials, which basket would you refer to? Would it be, your pure play banks? Would it be your NBFCs? Would it be your insurance companies? What will that pecking order look like according to you in terms of financials, number one? And two, in terms of the other sectors that you mentioned, your consumption sector, defense materials and OMCs, what would be the pecking order that an investor should look at so that Nifty could probably go to that 29,000 target?
Yeah, look, I think within financials, we have a preference for banks and NBFCs over insurers. We are neutral insurers and overweight the banks and NBFC pack. I would say large private banks, maybe the largest sort of PSU banks, we sort of favor both. So we don't have a strong sort of preference between private versus sort of the large cap PSUs, but overall, most of the measures that have been announced by the RBI that at the margin benefit mostly private banks, but also NBFCs. So we like both those cohorts over insurance companies. Regarding consumption, we like to play it through a variety of sectors. We are overweight staples pack. There we think the volume numbers should continue to improve going forward, given not just the GST related tailwinds, but we think that could persist over time. But you also have, as we look over the next couple of years, you have more elections coming up. You also have the pay commission. The tailwinds from those should also help the staples pack. We continue to like the autos. They have done well. But we think it's still a much under-penetrated category compared to staples. And we still like within autos the mass market and the compact SUV segments. So both those packs, autos and staples, should do well. We have upgraded recently durables as well. So pretty much the broader consumption pack we like. The only pocket which we have downgraded recently is the discretionary bit wherein there is more competition, so paints and some of the other sort of categories there. But otherwise, like the broader sort of consumption theme, including tourism, by the way, which we play through both airlines, but also some of the online players. The one thing I would add is that if you look at the consumption stocks as a cohort, you did have a rally after the GST announcement, but all of those gains have been sort of taken out in the last couple of months, and so I think the risk reward on the broader consumption pack still looks pretty good. So I would say financials and some of these consumption related sectors is where our preferences lie.
Sunil, and just this conversation drawing to a close, it's already been fascinating. Where I just want to maybe not necessarily a counterpoint, but just to kind of take you a little further down the road to talk about the implications of everything that's happened so far. We're yet to see a private capex boom, and I know a few large companies are saying that they will have to bolster capacity. We're yet to see that, but when do you see that from your study of these various sectors? When do you see that taking place, and what are the implications according to you? Because on the one hand, you're saying that consumption will get a leg up through some of these measures, but durably, one would assume that jobs and paychecks and all of those things, the flywheel, will only really kickstart with private capex.
I mean, that's right. Look, I think over the next few quarters, we do have a stronger preference, as I said, of financials, consumers, over the export-oriented segments and industrials or infrastructure segment. You're right. I think private capex, we have seen a few sectors, some green shoots there. The announcements have increased, but or the intentions have increased in some of the private companies, but we haven't seen that translating to the orders yet. And the reason we are underweight the broader industrial pack is also because we do think that the government will continue to adhere to fiscal discipline, which means at the margin, if you're spending more on consumption, the infrastructure spend will have to continue to moderate, which is where that view is coming in from. Obviously, we know that the supply side conditions are there with the capacity utilizations being high, and the government is doing its bit as well. And so, but we haven't seen yet that playing out in the capex side of the story, barring a few pockets here and there. So I would say, in general, therefore, the preference remains towards the other bits. The one area within the broader infrastructure pack, if I may say, is both power and defense. That's something we like as a theme. I mean, defense is obviously a structural theme broadly, but there the visibility on the order book is very high, and so we like the defense plays, not just the large cap and government related entities, but also some of the more private players, which are getting in more high tech segments of the defense pack, as well as power generation that remains a strong theme in India. So there are bits of the broader infrastructure we like. But the segments that are more linked to government capex essentially would be the ones that will lag in the market.
Absolutely. All right, absolutely. Thanks so much for taking the time. A pleasure having you on the show, and look forward to our next chat.
Thank you.
All right, that was Sunil Kaul of Goldman Sachs. We've joined right now by Aditya Garwala of Invest for Edu, as well as Siddharth Khemka of Motilal Oswal. Gentlemen, thank you so much for taking the time. As always, pleasure having you. Good afternoon to you. Aditya, I'll start with you because we're seeing a bit of an up move, right? And we've reclaimed the 26,000 mark. We're currently trading just nudging above that. The question is that going to be durable? And we saw a similar move upwards in the last half hour of Friday. Do we see a significant up move from this point, or do we consolidate a bit here?
Afternoon, Alex. Thanks for coming on the show. My sense is markets will eventually break out of this hurdle of 26,100, might just consolidate here for some time, but matter of time before it breaks out. May not happen today, might happen tomorrow, day after tomorrow. But overall, my sense is you will see a new high on the indices, the way the Bank Nifty has been projecting, and the setup tells me that 26,100, 200 should be taken out, and you're headed towards 27,000 on the upside. So there's no doubt about the fact that there is bullishness, the undertone is strong, and eventually markets should break out of that hurdle of 26,100, 200 that has been holding on for some time now.
Okay. What about individual stocks that you're looking at? And Indeed, we're seeing the 26,000 mark being pretty hard to hold on to for the benchmark Nifty 50. But what individual stocks are you liking right now?
A couple of them, Alex. One is from the capital market space, capital goods space rather. Cap goods. BHEL is looking quite interesting to me. After a bit of a run-up, stock went into consolidation. We are seeing an up move again in trade today. My sense is it will build onto this move and further gains will be seen here. So for a target of 310, I'll be a buyer here with a stop loss at 275 on the downside. And Biocon from the pharma space is the another call. Again, this is one stock which has suddenly made a move and charging ahead. So at current levels, I still believe there's room on the upside. I would recommend a buy here for a target of 435 on the upside and a stop loss at 410 on the downside.
That's pretty interesting. Biocon coming in, stock is up almost 2%. Hi Siddharth, good afternoon. Sharad here. Siddharth, we are speaking about defense stocks also, and defense stock seems to be a structural story. But in this case, how is the defense and the PSU, I mean to say only the defense pack, what's your view on that? Will we see more sustenance going forward in the long-term basis?
Hi, Sharad. Good afternoon. I think if you look at one space where the capex continues to remain strong, has been defense, and for unfortunate reasons, you may say so, but that is one space where we are seeing continuous flow of order inflows, special budgetary allowances is being given. And we also see that the government has been supportive of the sector in the sense that a lot of new orders that are being given out even to foreign players. There is a minimum quantity that needs to be made in India, the technology transfers. So I think this is a structural story for the next 10 years. I think defense as a space, both the public sector defense companies as well as some of the private sector companies will scale up and not only provide for the Indian government needs, but exports also forms a big part of the government's plan of reviving the sector. So we remain very positive on the defense space. We believe that it's, as I said, as a long-term structural story. Now, within the stocks, I would say some of the leaders in their space, respective space that we like, Bharat Electronics, Bharat Dynamics, HAL. These are some of the preferred picks, even in the shipyard, if you look at Mazagon Dock. So all 3-4 of them have pretty strong order book. Execution has picked up. And I think valuations compared to the opportunity size is still comfortable. So we definitely see a lot of room for upside at current levels.
Interesting names that Siddharth is giving out, and in fact the defense rally is just yet to stay with us, Aditya and Siddharth, because right now it's the time to do the bull versus bear case, and it's a perfect example. A stock which actually opened lower saw a recovery to the tune of almost nearly 4 to 5% from the opening lows, and a good recovery. Whether the sustenance will be there or not, it's Glenmark that we're talking about. After that recovery, again, it's turned negative. We're seeing cuts of nearly 2% coming in on this counter. Let's pull up all the bull and the bear case scenarios for Glenmark. Now, first up, if you see in terms of the first bull case, what has happened is almost a 3,670 crore AbbVie payout is what they saw, plus the ISB 2001 licensing that Glenmark did, that came in as a booster for the counter. And this is what actually gave Glenmark a huge financial flexibility to go ahead and clean up their legacy issues and fund growth. Now, to counter this, if you talk about the bear case, they've done a heavy cleanup, and that is what actually masked your second quarter as well. If you see in terms of the core operations, they were weak because their operational performance was mainly on the back of large write-offs that they saw. They did good amount of provisioning. There was correction when you talk about the India business as well. Inventory and R&D were concerns. Now, when you talk about the other bull case right now, we're talking about in terms of US and the European Union business, good growth in that range of 7 to 8.5% that did come in. But it was mainly the India sales which crashed to 165 odd crores, and that is a concerning area there. In fact, in the conference call, they did mention as well that India business will come back to normalcy from the third quarter of FY26. They are expecting a strong second half because their outlook is around 8,000 crores in terms of revenues. And if you counter this bear case, they are expecting 2 major cleanups in 2 years. Now, they've done 2 major cleanups in 2 years, and this is what is the major concern, because further down, if they do any further cleanups, it would be cumbersome. And secondly, they've said that their provisioning is going to be next to negligible going ahead. If you see their guidance for FY27, 17 to 18,000 crores in terms of revenues and 25% margin is what they've guided for. In fact, 23% is what they're expecting in the second half of the year as well. However, their near-term margins are still uncertain. So in spite of the 23% guidance, how will they be able to achieve that is the key question over here. Moving on, if you see in terms of the other aspects, their cash position post the cleanup is looking pretty strong. However, on a bear case scenario, their working capital has deteriorated, and this is despite lower revenues, and that is what takes you to what can be considered from here on. If you talk about their free cash flow, that has seen a surge. Their gross debt, that is expected to be zero by FY26, and the near-term margins still remain absolutely uncertain. So both the cases are pretty strong over here. The key over here is your earnings in terms of the second quarter was very weak. There was a lot of provisioning that was done, and that's the reason why the stock reacted negatively. The commentary that the management has given in the conference call is extremely bullish, and that's the reason why you did see that recovery that did come in as well. But Siddharth, let me take this question with you first. Between the bull and the bear case, earnings which are extremely weak, the commentary extremely strong, the company has done twice a cleanup in terms of their balance sheet. Would you still prefer buying a Glenmark at this juncture?
So Hiral, I think a very weak set of numbers. If you clearly see in terms of the near-term outlook, I think I would remain cautious. Weak fundamentals, high inventory-led adjustments, and as you rightly said, 2 times the adjustments have already been done. And if at all there was a case of another inventory write-off around the corner, I think the market will definitely punish the stock. Long-term, lot of opportunities, specialty portfolio, the ADCs, the derma, as well as the international markets. So I think, as you rightly portrayed, both between bulls and bears, the case right now, purely on back of the management confidence, one can see that the downside could be limited. But for the upside to resume, I would wait for at least Q3, Q4 numbers for the numbers to start delivering what the management is promising.
So Glenmark down about 1.6% off the high point of the day, certainly, and quite wobbly, quite volatile in trade. But let's talk about certain other stocks that you should keep on your radar, and this is in our special segment that my colleague Somit Sarkar brings you. It's called Heard on the Street. This is all the chatter from the dealing room. Somit joining in now. Somit, good afternoon. What's on your list today?
Good afternoon, Alex. Multiple stocks remain in focus in trade today. Firstly, it's emphasis where there are sell flows on large HNI desk, and what dealers are indicating for emphasis is the fact that there could be a potential block deal that could happen in the counter very soon. The promoter Blackstone is expected to be the seller here, and that's the reason the stock is down 2.5% on the back of a buzz of a potential block deal that is expected to happen soon. Apart from that, multiple stocks when it comes to large cap where we are seeing strong flows. Axis Bank, Dixon Tech and RVNL, there are buy flows on institutional desk on all these 3 counters is what dealers have indicated. Dixon Tech in fact was part of a segment a few days back as well, where we had seen strong flows on the back of strong export and strong orders expected, and again today it's highlighting in the dealer desk that there are strong flows coming in for Dixon Tech, and delivery volumes are also expected to be on the higher side for these 3 names. When it comes to Divi's Lab, there are buy flows on PMS desk. The stock has corrected a lot, and what dealers are indicating is that there could be a positive announcement related to one of its related to one of the drugs that to which Divi's is a supplier. So keep an eye out for Divi's Lab as well. For SRF, there are buy flows on large HNI desk. Dealers indicate that the stock should benefit from tariff reduction if and when that announcement comes in. That is the India-US tariff cut that is expected by the street. Whenever that announcement comes in, SRF could be one of the biggest beneficiary here, and the stock has also been an underperformer. So keep an eye out for SRF as well. PB Fintech, there are buy flows on HNI desk. Dealers are not expecting any big impact on yields owing to the GST rate cut. The insurance company, what impact they had seen, that they are not expecting the same to be passed on to PB Fintech, and that's the reason we are seeing such kind of flows when it comes to PB Fintech. That stock is up around 5% in trade, largely on the back of expectations that there won't be any impact on the yields of PB Fintech. And couple of stocks that were a part of a segment on Friday, which are seeing strong buy flows in trade today as well. Firstly, it was Eternal. There were buy flows on FI at desk is what we had indicated on Friday, and this is largely because Swiggy is finding it difficult to raise funds, and if Swiggy is not able to raise as much as they want to, then it would be much more positive for Eternal, and that's the reason that stock is also up around 1.7% in trade today. And the second one was Voltas, where we did indicate that there were strong flows despite the bad numbers. This was largely because of short covering. It seems to be going on today as well. The stock is up 2%, and also the street is taking confidence from the fact that the company was able to gain market share in a weak quarter.
That's two khabar confirmations coming in. Thank you very much, Somit. Eternal and Voltas. Out of this Eternal, that's an interesting stock. We had mentioned earlier with Alex also that the 300 odd levels is where the up moves was happening. Aditya, technically, does it seem that now Eternal will be back? It's a growth phase, a kind of a short-term up move more we can expect from the current levels?
Possibilities there, Sharad, without a doubt, because stock actually corrected and took support at those key areas of 290, 295, and from there it's trying to make a comeback. For a target of 320, 330 on the upside, yes, there is a possibility of a short-term bump up, but I would be a little skeptical for holding on to it for a long-term. A trading bet here definitely can be done for a target of 330 with a stop loss at 300 on the downside.
Let me ask you about another pack that has been doing particularly well. I wonder whether PSU banking pack is, as of this morning, it was one of the top gainers, and I wonder where it is right now. Pull up that index, and then later we can talk about the constituents as well. 86 points or thereabouts. IOB looking good. Bank of Maharashtra, CBI, Central Bank of India, Indian Bank, PS. I would think that PNB is one of the underperformers, in fact. But out of any of these that I've mentioned, Aditya, would you pick one of these, or would you go with a State Bank of India, for example?
Can go for a State Bank of India, but if you definitely have to pick one now, probably a couple of stocks that I'll go for Bank of Baroda and PNB, because they have not chipped in yet as compared to your Canara Bank or maybe an SBI. So PNB at current levels, I wouldn't shy away from taking a long position for a target of 130 on the upside with a stop loss at 120 on the downside. And Bank of Baroda is second, which I still feel that there is room on the upside still left for a new fresh highs there. So for a target of 300 plus, I'll be a buyer in Bank of Baroda and place a stop loss at 280 on the downside. Overall, the PSU bank still looks very strong, Alex. And if you have to cherry pick one or two PSU banks, maybe Bank of Baroda and PNB at current levels, make a better bet.
It's pretty interesting on that PSU banking front. And for the second straight day, we are seeing a good strength coming in. Also, the buzz was there in the weekend that there would be a merger for the PSU banks coming in over the next
and that has
April
been in the
to May.
offing since quite some time right now, where they've started the discussions in terms of which PSU banks that can merge, but when it happens is the time that you can take it with a pinch of salt.
It's been a while, no?
Yeah, it's been
Since
a while that we've been
that
talking
initial
about it.
round of
mergers that happened, and now the
place.
second round, which is in the talks, but that we should take into consideration. But two other stocks, what I want to talk about is Supreme Industries and Astral. It's very interesting because it's a counter impact of a Reliance Industries that's that we're seeing on both these counters. Correct, because if you see both the counters as well trading under pressure, some mild recovery that has come in. Now, if you talk about these stocks, Reliance Industries has gone ahead and cut PVC prices, and this has been done by around 3 rupees per kg. Now, this takes the rate down to almost 70 rupees per kg. Now, why the fall? The reason why Reliance has cut PVC prices, and they've done this from the 15th of November. Now, from October 2025 till date, Reliance has nearly cut prices by nearly 6 rupees per kg. The government has confirmed that the DGTR recommended anti-dumping duty on PVC is what they have looked at. In fact, the ministry had recently looked at the BIS mandate as well on several polymers. Now, this indicates that the government from here on is not favouring anti-dumping duty as well as BIS implementation. And the absence of anti-dumping duty when it comes to all of these products, that may actually limit the primary stocking as well as it will also cap the volume growth when it comes to pipe companies in the second half, unless and until the demand improves. Now, the margin compression is what comes at play over here, because in the past, all of these companies would have purchased raw material at a higher price. Now that this price gets capped right now, or because of that 6 rupees per kg cut, it will compress the margins of both these companies, and that's the reason why you're seeing this kind of pressure. Siddharth, your view, not only on a Supreme and Astral, but even when it comes to Reliance Industries taking PVC as a product into consideration?
I think, Hiral, if you look at if this kind of price cut, especially as you highlighted, the government's intention of not having an safeguard duty, I think that opens up the space for further price erosion and the margins hit. On its own, if you look at Astral, Q2 numbers were pretty decent. I would say revenue grew 15%, volume growth of about 21%. Margin saw a decent expansion of 100 basis points. Management gave a guidance, maintained the guidance where they broadly looking at a steady Q3, Q4. So I think apart from the news flows, some of these large players like Astral, Supreme, in terms of results and in terms of the overall numbers, they are pretty set. Supreme, unfortunately, the numbers were not that strong. I think margins were a little under pressure. So overall, building materials do not see that kind of strong growth. And to top it all, if the government's policies are not that supportive, I think the sector could remain under pressure. In the near term.
And we were just also thinking about this. It has a positive effect for the consumption players as well, to the extent that their packaging gets that much cheaper, one would assume. And of course, directionally, they've had the benefit of lower crude prices, which seem to be having a ceiling at this moment and not heading above that $65 per barrel mark for Brent in a durable manner. On that note, Aditya, thank you so much for taking the time and speaking to us this afternoon. Pleasure speaking with you. We have to slip into a very quick break. We'll get you on the other side more stocks that you should keep on your watch list, as well as the top buy today, sell tomorrow picks. Do stay tuned.
The NDTV Profit has come a long way.
You are the new schools and colleges which people are getting access to education from.
In the world of money and markets, the real currency is clarity.
So you guys are democratized information, and I think first you seeded the market, now the market is seeding you back out there.
Decisive, discerning, distinct. NDTV Profit isn't just business news.
We are like visiting faculty occasionally who come and get a chance to share what we can, but I think it's a great service.
It's the new language of markets, and the voices that move markets know it. Understand markets, decode money through the masters who shape them.
I think you're trying to get knowledge to smaller cities and towns, making it simple for retail investors. I think what you're doing is also contributing to the Indian capital markets and Indian economy.
When leaders speak of markets, they speak to NDTV Profit.
Hello and welcome to India Market Close. You are watching NDTV Profit, and looking at Nifty right now, it's near its day's high levels, comfortably over the 26,000 levels. Let's pull up the chart. It's near the day's high level, comfortably above the 26,000 mark. Of course, we'll be talking about the auto stocks as well, as Morgan Stanley has released a note on Hero Moto. They're upgrading it to overweight with a hiking target price to 6,471 rupees. Let's get in Puneet to actually understand why this broking upgrade has happened. Puneet, what are the key takeaways coming from this report?
Well, it's definitely on the back of strong quarterly earnings for Hero MotoCorp, touching 15% EBIT margins, which a number that's eluded them for a while now, and largely, upgrading the stock to an overweight, as you rightly said, target price of 6,471. Now, they've mentioned that the market share decline for Hero MotoCorp has actually now paused, which is a good momentum because it's something that hampered both Hero as well as Bajaj Auto over the last 6 to 8 quarters. And going forward, they are expecting that it's starting to see gains in the scooter segment, which has been actually outperforming the motorcycle segment over the last 6 quarters as well. Now, Hero has a unique advantage that while it has the EV motorcycle and EV scooters with the Vida brand, they've also launched multiple new ICE scooters, and that's what differentiates them with something like a Bajaj Auto. A better mix as well as lower losses for EV business is another key positive, which will give margins an additional tailwind according to Morgan Stanley. And finally, they've highlighted stock trades at 16.8 times price to earnings plus a 3% dividend yield. So it will give that comfort to investors who are looking to take a bet there. And here is where the differentiation lies for someone like a Hero MotoCorp compared to the other industrial players, with valuation comfort as well as margin tailwinds as a key trigger going forward.
That's a strong move coming in on a Hero Motor versus a Tata Motors, which is the stock of the day, seeing some major cuts in trade today if you have to look at the auto pack. In fact, let's get in Jay Bala as well. Jay, welcome to the show. Always a pleasure to speak to you at NDTV. Let's start off with the markets before we talk about stocks. We've reclaimed that 26,000 mark at around 230 in trade today. From here on, what should that strategy look like, and what are the levels that you would be tracking in terms of Nifty 50 and your strategy when it comes to Bank Nifty? Because a lot of positive calls now coming in, especially for the PSU banking space.
Hi here. I'm still positive on Nifty, and I had been projecting 29,000 for the Nifty since April. And Goldman Sachs has upgraded India to overweight with an objective of 29,000 just last week. And so when it comes to short-term levels, the Nifty is unlikely to drop below 21,153. If we try to do it, then we'll be revising our bullish objectives. Strategy remains buy on the dip. And when it comes to the banking index, I'm anticipating the banking index to scale fresh 52-week highs past 59,000 and 59,940. And it's already at fresh 52-week highs, fresh all-time highs. And the mid-cap index clocked fresh all-time highs just last week. And I'm sure the Nifty is set to follow these two indices. And the fact that mid-cap indices clocked record highs is a signal of the market breadth widening. So I'm sure the Nifty struggle around 26,000 mark will be just fleeting. And once 26,104 is taken out, the only resistance for the market is the all-time high.
And so just a quick follow-up on that, do you anticipate that it could be taken out in this week itself, or do you think that the wait will be longer than that? And two, what individual stocks are you anticipating will do well in the near term?
Hi, Alex. It is likely that the markets are likely to take out the all-time highs this week itself. The setup is quite encouraging. There have been multiple attempts to breach the 26,000 mark, and the number of attempts that markets make, the weaker the resistance becomes. So this is the fourth or fifth attempt on the 26,100 mark. So I'm sure it will get taken out really quickly. I won't fix myself as being this week, but I believe it's just a matter of time. And when it comes to individual stocks, I'm bullish on two names here. Short-term calls on Aurobindo Pharma with a stop loss of 1,065. I'm expecting 1,500 to get touched for the stock. And the other half is from the tech space, Coforge. Coforge, again, a short-term call with a stop loss of 1711 with an objective of 2025.
Got it. Okay. There's a stock that is buzzing in the broader markets, and this is Ajax Engineering. This is on the back of a Citi note, presumably, because the stock is up about 7%. It has upgraded the stock to a buy with a target price of 735, which implies an upside even from this elevated level. They say that the worst may actually be behind the company at this point. They say that they expect demand and margins to trend upwards, and that improvement in concrete demand is something that is boding well for the company. The market share recovery is also something that should work in the favor of the company going forward. And they're also saying that the company is seeing better acceptance, better pricing, and all of that should reflect in the financials going forward. Siddharth, coverage on this particular counter, and if not, in the space that it operates in, what would your preferred picks be?
So, Alex, we don't have coverage on Ajax Engineering. I don't think we have view on those stocks. But overall, I think if you look at the EPC engineering construction space, I think what we like is obviously the larger names, some of the names in the space. For example, Larsen is something that we continue to like. In the sub-segment of the capital goods space is the defense space that again we like. But we don't have much coverage on specifically on this space.
Jay, how are you? Thanks, Siddharth, for that. Jay, how are you looking at Ajax Energy Engineering and a Hero Motors? Strong moves in today's session. Would you still be a buyer or would you advise investors to book profits today?
The Ajax has got a very limited history, so it's difficult to form an opinion from a technical point. But the short-term bottom seems to have been put in at around 557 mark. But I don't have a very good hold on this. When it comes to Hero Motors, I turned bullish on Hero Motors in mid-July, around 4,400 mark, and I projected fresh all-time highs for it, along with Bajaj Auto. Bajaj Auto has been a laggard, but Hero Motor has been working out really well. And I'm sure the 63,100 odd marks, which is the fresh record highs for Hero Motors, that will get taken out in a matter of few weeks.
For those that were wondering, Ajax is the name of the company, not Ajaz.
That's a colleague of ours.
A colleague of ours. But in case you were wondering about the origin of Ajax, it is actually Greek. It's a Greek hero. Do check it out if you're interested in that kind of stuff. But having said that, let's find out the newsmakers of the day. We've got Mahima joining in to talk about some of those, and there are quite a few to talk about. I wonder what she's chosen in her list. Mahima?
Right, so Alex, basically, it's a list of counters that have been kind of buzzing. It's not just newsmakers of today, but I've taken the top movers for the day. I'll start with transformers and rectifiers. After the kind of news flow that came in on Friday, indicating that it was removed from the list of debarring firms and individuals from the World Bank list, the company was granted extension for submitting its explanation against the sanction case. We saw the stock hit an upper circuit, and after that, even today, it's been up that 4% mark since the start of the trade. New deadline for the submission, of course, has been set on 12th of January 2026. In fact, management, when spoke to NDTV Profit, talked about their view in a very positive manner. They said that no impact will be there on order book considering this announcement. Organization image will remain intact with the announcement, and confidence of foreign customers will increase going forward. The next one is Gabriel India. Well, strong volumes coming in here, 8 times its 30-day average. If you take a look at how Q2 has panned out for something like a Gabriel India, which came out with earnings on last Thursday. Overall margins were flat, but positive set of numbers. Earlier JV plan, having in flat around 51%, and Gabriel at 49% was rejected by Ministry of Heavy Industries. But capex for H1 FY26 stood at around 108 odd crores versus that of 44 odd crores. Major capex was spent on Chakan 2 plant. Export revenue was maintained at around 3%. The other one that is in focus today is Jubilant Engravia. Volumes almost 3 times its 30-day average. In terms of the stock seeing an uptick, overall Q2 performance growth was led by specialty chemicals segment. They're targeting a 12,000 crore peak revenue in the new CDMO contract space, and management has maintained their guidance with regards to where EBITDA is concerned of around 2,000 crore for FY30, by FY30. So this is the overall view of the 3 counters that are buzzing and moving in trade today.
Okay. All right. So the one stock that I want to talk about out of this entire list is a stock that is gotten out of circuit today, I believe. Let's pull up Trill if we can, or Tarrell. Transformers and rectifiers. Yes, it is in fact trading up about 4.8%. And you know the context. It was put on a debarment list by the World Bank, and that was rolled back towards the end of last week, and it's been buzzing ever since. But Jay, on the charts, How do you trade this? Because it's been extremely volatile all of last week and it's had a significant up move. If at all, one can argue that it's the recovering lost ground. So if you have been able to hold during this time frame, would you book out right now or would you hold for upside?
I wouldn't have touched the stock in the first place because it's in a very strong downtrend, and it's got a very large gap between 380 and 340. So probably this recovery is a gap filling mechanism, and the momentum is still with the downtrending move. So I would still anticipate lower lows to come through. Since the stock is not in F&O and it can't be shorted, it's an avoid for me. But if you are long, and if you're getting near break even, I would use that opportunity to exit the stock.
Okay, so that's with regards to transformers and rectifiers, but two counters which are moving on the back of earnings. Narayana Hrudayalaya, strong moves coming in there, and SKF India. Let's pull up both the counters.
Sorry, I can't get over it because we looked at it this morning, Hiral and Sharad. The numbers were good.
Correct.
Okay, 20% upside in revenue, 30% PAT growth, significant 200 basis points margin improvement. Does it warrant a 14% up move?
Yeah, it's the hospital business probably which is in trend right now is what I could say.
I think there was a recent commentary also from the government that for US nationals or abroad nationals, they come in and you get visa on arrival for medical facilities.
Medical tourism is the thing, and I think that's the conversation you would want to catch on NDTV Profit on India Market Open tomorrow as well. An extensive discussion with companies and analysts as to what medical tourism would actually mean for Indian companies.
Our directors are making fun of me because I used to struggle saying Narayana Hrudayalaya. Yeah, there you go. I practiced enough.
Okay, so that's what we're talking about. In fact, Jasmeet is with us to tell us more as to what's worked for both these counters today. Jasmeet, over to you.
Well, right, thank you for that. Starting up with the first counter, that's Narayana Hrudayalaya. While for this company records the highest ever revenue and profitability in this particular quarter. While the growth we see was led by the Cayman business, where the revenue has been 78%. Talking about the Indian trajectory, when that has done really well, even on the back of increased footfall. In terms of the core and non-core business, the core segment is up 15%, while the non-core business is up nearly 16 folds. Given that, while the other expenses have inched up in the quarter, which is roughly up 43%, which can be seen on the stock movement. So talking about the next one, that's SKF India. While we see a positive numbers coming for the company, the margins have expanded by 230 basis points in this particular quarter. If we look at the overall revenue, that has inched up faster than the cost. That's why the EBITDA and margin expansion. On the other hand, management has reduced the purchaser in this particular quarter, which is helping the margins. While if you look at the overall purchases, they're down to 35% YOY basis. In terms of the demerger, management makes a commentary stating that the demerger will be effective from 1st of October, which impact can be seen from the Q3 itself. And in terms of the capex plan, the SKF Industrial to invest roughly 800 to 900 odd crores by 2030, while the SKF Automotive to invest roughly 400 to 500 crore by 2030.
For that, Jasmeet, in fact, strong moves in SKF India, but that stock has cooled off slightly. Another counter which comes to my radar right now is a Neogen Chemicals. A strong surge coming in on this counter. In fact, their con call transcript is out. I'm sure there could be some commentary and that's the reason why that stock is buzzing in trade. Bector Foods is another one. 8 to 9% upside coming in the last hour of trade on a Bector Foods as well. Equitas Small Finance Bank, a 7 to 8% up move, and a MRPL, a 7% upside on this one as well. In fact, let me come to you, Jay. Neogen, Bector Foods, Narayana Hrudayalaya, Equitas Small Finance Bank, MRPL. Anything that would come to your radar which could still be buy calls, because there is some strong momentum seen on these counters in today's session?
Neogen is an avoid. It's in a downtrend. It's just a blip in the downtrend. And when it comes to Equitas and MRPL, they are in strong uptrend. So Equitas is already on my watch list. I've been thinking about this as a possible buy today, sell tomorrow candidate. And MRPL, I've been bullish on OMC names for the last 1 month. And also MRPL and Chennai Petro have been rank outperformers. So, but it might be a bit late to get into these stocks, but they are in a strong uptrend. So I like these a couple of names that I mentioned just now. But Neogen is an avoid.
Okay, all right. So that's the view on the charts. But I wonder, Siddharth, on the fundamentals, whether you had a chance to look at Narayana Hridayalaya numbers. I'm going to go with healthcare, Narayana Healthcare here. But having said that, have you looked at the numbers? Do you like this or any of the other hospital stocks?
Yeah, definitely. I think if you look at hospitals, unfortunately, Narayana is not under coverage, but across we have Apollo Hospitals, Max Healthcare, and Medanta. On an aggregate, they delivered about 11-12% revenue growth. This is because of the high base, but otherwise, what we see is that they've been consistently delivering strong numbers, and that is something that is as a space within the broader healthcare. I think we continue to remain very positive on hospitals. Purely domestic story, the average room rates, the occupancy, I think that is going up. And even in terms of margins, some of the players like Max Healthcare have been consistently driving growth through both greenfield as well as brownfield expansion. And I think between the three stocks that we cover in the healthcare space, which is your Apollo Hospital, Max, and Medanta, our top pick is Max Healthcare.
Okay.
Well, that's a pretty interesting take coming on these stocks. But in our profit intelligence, we will be getting you all the stocks which were a turnaround in the second quarter. I have purposefully taken mid cap and small caps where we have seen the amount of profit actually coming, as if you see a turnaround by definition from loss to profit, or an increase in numbers maybe after 6 to 8 quarters of suppression coming in. But one by one, let's see, pick out these companies. First company comes into mode is Tattva Chintan Pharma. The financial parameter which turned around was the EBITDA margin and the net profit. Now, what led to this? There was an improvement in the product mix and operating leverage kicking in. Outlook ahead, there's a recovery in the SDA agent segment, and the margins, they are expected to normalize going ahead to in 2026 between 20 to 22 odd %. Also, looking at Asian Paints, financial parameters, a significant parameter turnaround happened, moved from losses to PAT. And looking at the overall turnaround that's coming from the decorative business, the volume growth stood at roughly around 11 odd %, and that actually surprised the street as well. Outlook looking like for Asian Paints, it's broad-based growth both in urban as well as rural segment. Honasa Consumer, a very strong top-line growth coming in and a better gross margin as well. Now, what led to this turnaround? That's very important. A 17% volume-led growth came in, and the growth trajectory was also on the stronger side. Skincare brand, that's where the bullishness is happening in the outlook front. Now, from financials, it's DAM Capital, which was a very superb quarter. You could say the numbers moved from losses to profit, and after 4 or 5 quarters of suppression, we saw a strong movement coming in. Investment banking segment was the star performer, and a strong growth was coming in this segment. However, if you look at the pipeline, 21 IPOs and 13 as a lead banker, it's there. So that is something which the street will be watching for. And lastly, Rain Industries is the fifth company where we saw turnaround, and EBITDA rebound was there, and this was led by the carbon segment, cement realizations, and a favorable currency for them. A lot of exports happen in Europe, and that is why if you compare that with the Indian rupee, it augurs well for the company. So these are the 5 important turnaround stocks in the second quarter.
For that, Sharad, interesting stocks that you've mentioned so far. Siddharth, the turnaround stories of the second quarter in terms of individual stocks, would you be a buyer of any of these? And if so, what would your top pick be?
I think some of them are really interesting names, especially if you look at the retail space. V2 retail, that is something that has caught my attention. I think even Vishal Mega Mart, they delivered another strong quarter, 22% growth led by store additions plus robust almost 13% adjusted same-store sales growth. I think some of them may not be a pure play buys, but definitely worth a look at it. As I said, within the retail space, we like a Vishal Mega Mart, strong quarters, strong results on all fronts, buy rating with a target of 180. But the list definitely makes warrant to have a detailed look.
Okay, so V2 retail is something that's coming to your radar as well. In fact, another stock that we should be discussing today is what's happening with Agro. If you see in terms of the market cap, it's actually crossed that 1 lakh crore mark, and it actually tells you it's a blockbuster market debut that the stock has made, and it's adding heft at an extraordinary pace as well. In fact, what's the stock growth looking like? A 1 lakh crore market cap is what it's hit. It actually listed at a 14% premium, and this is on the 13th of November. It's added nearly 30,000 odd crores when it comes to market cap in the last 3 trading sessions. And it's seeing following buying from institutional investors as well post the IPO. If you see in terms of the key prices, the IPO price was around 100, the listing price was 112, and the current market price, which sits at around 178 rupees per share. It's actually surpassed the total of the 9 other brokerages. So if you talk about the listed players from a Novama to a Angel One, JM Financial, Choice, IIFL Capital, you can see the names on the list. If you total the market cap of all of these, it's actually surpassed that as well. And you're seeing some strong momentum in the other names. So this is going to be an interesting story that we need to track from here on. Siddharth, your view when it comes to Grow versus the other capital market players?
So I think definitely a surprise for all of us in the capital market. I think what good it does is that the benchmark valuation now what Grow is setting, I think the others need to do a lot of catch up, including the likes of BSE or an Angel One or an MCX or the other stockbroking stocks. But I think one thing that is key positive is in the last few weeks, the regulator coming out in some of the conferences and clearly saying out that the weekly derivatives expiry is not going to go away. I think that is something that has kind of removed a big overhang, especially for some of the broking stocks.
Interesting. All right. It is also interesting that that the counter in terms of market capitalization is comparable with the one listed exchange in the stock market space, BSE, more or less around that 1 lakh crore mark. Jay, I want to come to you on any BTST ideas that you might have.
Yeah, I'm looking at Bajaj Auto as a BTST, and I'm liking the stock. And with a stop loss of about 8,800, I'm anticipating the stock to reach 9,050 tomorrow.
Okay, so that's with regards to Bajaj Auto. Siddharth, a couple of small cap companies which are buzzing in trade today. From SP Apparel, strong volumes over there. Rico Auto seeing some strong volumes. Ideaforge Technology is buzzing on the back of, a couple of order wins as well that did come in on a Friday. Anything that you like from the 3 counters? Because there are fundamental reasons to these counters as well. And the volumes are pretty strong.
Hiral, unfortunately, again, some of these names we don't cover smaller names, so I will not have a view.
Anything from the respective sectors?
Yeah, so I think from the auto sector, Hero MotoCorp came out with pretty strong, steady quarters, volume led by growth, stable margins. We are witnessing rural recovery, and along with that, improving exports plus the EV momentum. I think the stock is well positioned. Valuations are pretty comfortable compared to some of the peers. Compares like TVS Motors or a Bajaj Auto trading at 16 to 18 times 1 year, 2 year forward on a PE basis. So we definitely like Hero Moto as a recovery play. We have a target price of 6,500 on Hero MotoCorp.
What about Siemens? And I was quite surprised, I must say, Siddharth, coverage on this one, because I thought that the numbers might have been a little bit soft, but then clearly the street is seeing something that they like. What do you think?
Even we thought Siemens mixed bag kind of numbers. Revenue was ahead, but profitability marginally below our expectations. Even if you look at segment-wise, smart infra mobility did well, while the digital remained kind of weak. Order inflows grew about 10%. So overall, what we see is that it's just a decent quarter. I think the street is definitely getting excited about the pickup in the inflows as well as in order inflows as well as in execution. Valuation wise, also I think pretty steady, and so we have a neutral rating on Siemens with a target price of 3,350. So don't see much upside until the execution picks up.
Well, that's pretty interesting. Thank you very much, Siddharth and Jay for joining us and giving your views both on technical and fundamental perspectives. But now let's go back to the market closing. A strong closing we are expecting, and especially we are hoping that this number stays above the 26,000 mark. Interestingly, we are hoping that for 59,000 for Nifty Bank as well. Strength coming from both of these counters, but Nifty Bank, that's the show coming in, as all HDFC Bank, ICICI Bank and PSU Bank, all three are firing the cylinders. Let's look at Nifty's important chart where the constituents, how they are actually moving in their trade. Roughly you could say 60 to 70% of these constituents are trading in the green, led by Eternal and Tata Motors. But on the losing side, we are having Ultratech Cement, Jio Financial, Asian Paints to the list. But net, the overall trend is strong, and it's expected that the Nifty will be closing above the 26,000 odd mark. Let's pull up the sectoral moves, how is actually panning out, and largely we see Nifty PSU Bank, Nifty Auto doing well in the trade, a sea of green coming in, and you see even the metal and defense reversing. So that is a very strong market heat map we are seeing. Let's look at the mid cap and the small cap, how they are actually panning out. And you see the Nifty Mid Cap 100 Index ending near the day's high level, and that's a very strong signal coming in. Same thing goes for small cap. That means value buying is coming in the broader indices as well. Let's get the advanced decline ratio also. Over here we see it has been in a narrow range. Earlier it was a big spike, but still the day is expected to end with higher advances than declines. Apart from this, let's pull up the BSE contribution chart where we see that the movement is happening, and this includes Narayan Hrudayalaya. It's 15% up, and that's a significant up move coming in. And also importantly, we look at the Tata Motors PV that has fallen the most. Emphasis expected a block deal, and Astral and even Supreme falling in the trade as well. So this is the entire picture of the market looking like, and it's strong closing seeing for Nifty and Nifty Bank as well, and that's important. But cues for watch for tomorrow: India's unemployment rate, India balance of exports, macro data is something which you'll be looking at. Interim dividend coming for Venus Pipes, but market might lack some triggers. IPO listings is much important. Both Physics Wala and MV Photovoltaic Power will be in focus, and shares coming out of lock-in, that's Kane's Tech 20%. So that is something which we'll be watching out for. But that's all for today at India Market Close at NDTV Profit. But after this, there's an interesting show coming up. Himangshi is getting us for Market Express.
The NDTV Profit has come a long ways.
You are the new schools and colleges which people are getting access to education from.
ने बढ़िया आपका काम किया, आपके तो नाम में ही प्रॉफिट लगा हुआ भाई.
In the world of money and markets, the real currency is clarity.
So you guys have democratized information, and I think first you seeded the market, now the market is seeding you back out there.
Decisive, discerning, distinct. NDTV Profit isn't just business news.
We are like visiting faculty occasionally who come and get a chance to share what we can, but I think it's a great service.
It's the new language of markets, and the voices that move markets know it. Understand markets, decode money through the masters who shape them.
I think you're trying to get knowledge to smaller cities and towns, making it simple for retail investors. I think what you're doing is also contributing to the Indian capital markets and Indian economy.
When leaders speak of markets, they speak to NDTV Profit.
we unveil NDTV Golf Pro-Am, India's #1 Golf Pro-Am, the course of champions, the conversation of leaders.
What a stellar lineup we have here on the stage.
Hello and welcome. You're watching Market Express and I'm your host Himakshi Bahugna. Now let's get straight into the show. So first up, let's see how the markets have fared today. So markets started the week on a cheerful note as Nifty ends above the 26,000 mark. HDFC Bank and ICICI Bank also contributes most to the rally. If we talk about Sensex, so that ended almost 400 points higher. Now it's a sea of green on the Dalal Street today with all the major sectors closing in the positive. Nifty PSU Bank also emerges as a top sectoral gainer and this is supported by strong buying momentum. Let's look at some key earnings. Ajax Engineering has posted a strong second quarter as large contract deliveries lift the revenues. However, margins come under pressure due to transition costs linked to the new CEV5 emission norms. So the SLCM business sees a sharp growth while non-SLCM revenues remain steady. Spares and services continue to expand, adding to the company's stable performance across the first half of the year. Next up, we have Citi, which has upgraded its, Ajax Engineering to buy with a target of 735 rupees, saying that the worst may be behind. Analysts also expect demand and margins to, trend higher, and this is driven by recovery in the concrete demand and also improved market share. Better acceptance and pricing could further support growth in the coming quarters. Next up, we have Ashoka Buildcon, which has posted its fourth consecutive quarter of revenue decline, with its total order book standing at around 14,900 crore rupees as of September. So the toll collections have risen 13% to roughly 360 crore rupees, but the company faces a setback as a 290 crore infrastructure project with MMRDA gets cancelled. Next up, we have Amber Enterprises, which is strengthening its electronics business as its key subsidiary, ILJIN Electronics, has signed a definitive pact to acquire a majority stake in Pune-based PCB maker Shogini TechnoArts. So the acquisition aims to boost Amber's bare PCB vertical, to deepen the backward integration and also to expand its footprint in the advanced electronics manufacturing space. And analysts are mixed on Tata Motors passenger vehicle business. So JP Morgan maintains a neutral rating with a target of 385 rupees and they've cited a weaker than expected JLR results but better margins in India PV. So CLSA stays positive with an outperform rating and also a target of 527 rupees, noting challenges from a cyber attack and also lower the JLR margins but expect GST cuts to boost the growth in small to mid SUVs. Now let's look at the brokerage note by Morgan Stanley, which has turned bullish on Hero MotoCorp, upgrading the stock to overweight and also raising its target to 6,471 rupees. So the brokerage notes that market share declines have paused, with Hero seeing gains in scooters, EVs and also the premium segment. So a better product mix and lower EV losses are expected to support the margins, while valuations and a healthy dividend yield have added further appeal. Anantraj's arm, Anantraj Cloud, has just signed a big deal with the Andhra Pradesh government. So they are set to develop a new data centers and also an IT park in the state. So this move is expected to bring in significant investment and also boost the region's tech infrastructure. And India's largest ethanol producer, Trueworld Bioenergy, has also signed an MOU to set up one of the world's largest sustainable aviation fuel manufacturing facilities in Andhra Pradesh with 2,250 crore rupees of investment. So this facility can actually produce 80,000 tons per year. The proposed plant is also expected to create over 500 direct jobs and nearly 2,000 indirect jobs, catalyzing the substantial economic growth across the allied sectors and also contributing to the region's industrial expansion and employment generation. Now from the infra space, IRB Infrastructure Trust has backed a major order from NHAI for the TOT-17 bundle covering 366 kilometers of the prestigious Lucknow-Ayodhya-Gorakhpur corridor on NH27 and part of the Lucknow-Varanasi corridor on NH731 for a revenue-linked concession period of 20 years. So this deal strengthens IRB's position, giving them a whopping 42% market share in the TOT space. And this is certainly a big win for the company. Next up, we have EPAC Durable, which is lining up a big expansion push. So the company has signed a non-binding MOU with the Andhra Pradesh Economic Development Board. They are committing to invest about 1,083 crore rupees, and this investment will support EPAC Durable's next phase of expansion. And also the company says, the plan will be executed in collaboration with Andhra Pradesh Economic Development Board. Next up, we have Glenmark Pharma, which may have posted weak earnings this time, but the management is sounding far more upbeat. On the con call, Glenmark said that it expects to return to a high growth phase soon. Revenues are projected to cross 8,000 crore rupees in the second half of FY26 and also grow around 15% in FY27. So taking the top line to 17,000 to 18,000 crore rupees. And on the margins front, if you look at, the company is guiding for 23% EBITDA in H2 of FY26 and also move towards 25% in the medium term. So that's a strong management commentary coming in there. Next up, we have Max Healthcare, which has posted a steady Q2 with a big boost to the profitability and thanks to a favorable tax impact. So revenue momentum was driven by higher occupied bed days, while PAT has jumped largely because of that tax benefit. And international patient revenue was up 25% year on year, now contributing 9% to the overall mix. So on the operations front, the bed capacity has expanded sharply to 4,760 beds compared to 3,949 last year, and occupancy stood at 77%, which is slightly lower than 79% year on year, while the average revenue per occupied bed has inched up 1%. So now if we look at the expansion side, a 160 bed tower has been commissioned in Mohali. A 268 bed tower at Nanavati Max goes live next week, and the company has secured approval for a new 130 bed hospital in Dehradun, targeted for 2028. Now, viewers, shares of Supreme Industries and Astral are under pressure today, and the big trigger is coming from Reliance. So RIL has cut the PVC prices by 3 rupees per kg effective 15th of November, and this is bringing down the prices to 70 rupees per kg. In fact, from October till now, Reliance has slashed PVC prices by almost 6 rupees per kg. And this is adding to the sentiment. The government still hasn't confirmed the DGTR recommended anti-dumping duty on the PVC. Plus, the ministry recently rolled back the BIS mandate on several polymers, and this is signaling that the government may not be in favor of the AD or BIS implementation at this stage. So without AD, analysts say that primary stocking could actually remain muted, which may cap the volume growth for pipe makers in the second half unless demand really picks up. Narayan Hrudayalaya posts its highest ever quarterly revenue and profitability in Q2. Growth is driven largely by its Cayman business, which surges 78% year on year. The Indian market also shows improvement with strong patient footfall supporting the operations. The core healthcare segment has grown 15%, while the other segments has recorded a remarkable 16-fold increase. However, other expenses have risen 43%, and this is reflecting higher operational costs during the quarter. Next up, we have SKF India. That has posted a strong Q2 with margins improving as revenue grows faster than cost, and this is supporting EBITDA. So overall business activity has risen, and the ongoing demerger is also expected to bring clarity and also accelerate the growth. So looking ahead, both the SKF Industrial and Automotive plan significant investments over the next few years to drive its expansion. US Indian Hotels Company is planning to step into the integrated wellness space with a strategic acquisition. So IHCL will pick up a 51% stake in Sparsh Infratech, which is the owner of the premium wellness resort Atmantan in Mulshi, Maharashtra. So the company is likely to invest around 240 crore rupees, valuing the target at an enterprise value of 415 crore rupees for the transaction. So Sparsh has been growing steadily, with revenues rising from 49.7 crore rupees in FY23 to 76.7 crore rupees in FY25. In fact, brokerages are also welcoming this move. Morgan Stanley has maintained its overweight rating with an 811 rupees of target and calling this an interesting foray into the holistic health. So overall, if we look at, IHCL is positioning itself to tap into the fast-growing holistic wellness market. Now let's also look at some brokerage notes on Voltas, and they seem pretty divided. Goldman Sachs has maintained its sell rating with a target of 1100 rupees, saying that the unitary cooling products business remains weak. They also believe that the H2 demand setup is already priced in, the EMP segment is only normalizing, and a positive surprise on the AC margins look unlikely. And on the other hand, if we look at Citi, so they have maintained its buy call, but they have trimmed the target to 1775 rupees from 1800 rupees. So Citi is saying that Voltas has started regaining the market share, and the non-perishable nature of AC demand could actually lift the FY27 growth. So they also flag positives like the pent-up summer demand, GST transition, and also realty completions, and channel the inventory returning to normal levels. Viewers, Anil Ambani has skipped the ED summons for the second straight day today. The Enforcement Directorate had called him for questioning in the FEMA-related case linked to a highway project in Jaipur, Ringus, but Ambani does not appear in person. Now, the ED had rejected his request for a virtual hearing and says that it wants to record his statement. The investigation alleges funds from the project were siphoned abroad through shell companies with a broader international network under scrutiny. The agency continues its probe into these alleged transactions. Viewers, Mumbai is facing a widespread CNG supply disruption after a key gas pipeline is damaged inside the RCF compound at Chembur. So the rupture has hit flow to the Mahanagar Gas Limited's Wadala City Gate Station, which is a critical node that feeds CNG pumps across Mumbai, Thane and Navi Mumbai. So through the day, taxi and auto rickshaw fleets struggle to stay on the road, with many vehicles running dry and turning back from shut pumps. So the limited pumps still operating are seeing long queues and extended waiting times, as you can see on your screens right now, the visuals there. MGL is saying that it is prioritizing domestic piped gas customers for now, as restoration work continues at the damaged site. So the company says that there is no definitive timeline yet for full CNG normalization, and this is raising concerns for transport operators, last mile logistic players, and also commuters heading into the work week. Viewers, Indian state-run oil marketing companies have finalized a one-year contract to source nearly 10% of the country's LPG imports from the US Gulf Coast in 2026, Union Minister for Petroleum and Natural Gas Hardeep Singh Puri said earlier today. So the deal will be covering around 2.2 million tons per annum, and it will mark the first structured long-term contract for US LPG into the Indian market. So the agreement comes at a time when both the nations are exploring a broader trade package, and also underscores India's strategy of diversifying fuel sources to ensure affordable and also reliable supplies for its expanding LPG consumer base. Energy has increasingly become a pillar of bilateral cooperation, with the US also emerging as a key supplier of oil, LNG, and now the LPG. The central government has cleared another tranche of applications under the Electronic Component Manufacturing Scheme with a total investment of 7,712 crore rupees. So this was mentioned by the IT Secretary S. Krishnan, earlier today. So 17 applications have been approved in the current tranche out of 249. The current tranche of applications also secured its first investment from Jammu and Kashmir. Other locations where the companies hail from include, Uttar Pradesh, Madhya Pradesh, Karnataka, Maharashtra, Tamil Nadu, and several others. So Krishnan said that the basic objective is to deepen the value chain in India, since the world, is looking at diversification of value chains, and also India is a key player in that. US Japanese investment bank Nomura Holdings is investigating its India fixed income operations amid concerns that reported profits in its rate division may have been inflated in the recent years. So the investigation is focused on how the company value trades in separate trading of registered interest and also principal of security bonds, or the strips. So Nomura's compliance unit started scrutinizing the valuation and also accounting practices of its local primary dealership about a month ago. Samsung Electronics has increased memory chip prices by up to 60% this month compared to September amid a global shortage driven by rising demand for AI. So this price increase is affecting the server makers and actually could raise the cost for smartphones and also computers. So shares of Samsung, SK Hynix and also US chip makers have surged following the development, highlighting now the AI boom has driven strong demand for chips tailored for AI applications and the memory chips used in them. So the price hike comes after Samsung, the world's biggest memory chip manufacturer, has decided to delay a formal announcement of pricing for the supply contracts in October. Next up, we have Ola Electric. That's in focus as the company said that it has commenced test rides of its 4680 Bharat Cell vehicles at the company's flagship stores across India. So the S1 Pro Plus is the first product to be powered by the company's indigenously manufactured 4680 Bharat Cell battery pack that delivers more range, better performance and also enhanced safety. So the company recently announced that it secured RA certification under the latest AIS 156 Amendment 4 standards issued by the Ministry of Road Transport and Highways. So the indigenous technology is now available for customers to experience through test rides at Ola's flagship stores. US Dipinder Goyal has sparked a conversation about the potential link between gravity and aging. So in a series of tweets on November 15, the founder and CEO of Zomato, as well as the founder of Eternal, highlighted what he suggests is the most critical and often ignored health factor affecting aging. That is the plumbing system to your brain. So he spoke about the theory known as the gravity aging hypothesis, which suggests that the constant pull of gravity on our bodies, particularly the brain, may contribute to the aging process. So Dipinder, whose venture Continue Research focuses on human longevity, aging research and health tracking technologies, shared that the hypothesis is based on the idea that our upright posture reduces the blood flow to the brain, potentially leading to a decline in the cognitive function and also the overall health. Now looking at the National Confederation of Central Government Employees, they're calling for changes to the terms of reference of the upcoming 8th Pay Commission. So the group wants pension revisions, arguing that the pensioners' payments have not kept up with the inflation. So they have urged the Prime Minister Narendra Modi to address this ahead of the Commission's final report. The Confederation also demands better allowances and also improved pay structure for the central government employees, citing stagnation and also the rising cost of living. Viewers, let's look at some global news now. Bangladesh court has sentenced the ousted Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina to death earlier today, concluding a months-long trial that found her guilty of ordering a deadly crackdown on a student-led uprising last year. So the ruling comes months before parliamentary elections expected in early February. Hasina's Awami League party has been barred from contesting. The International Crimes Tribunal, Bangladesh's domestic war crimes court located in the capital Dhaka, has delivered the guilty verdict amid tight security and also in Hasina's absence after she fled to India in August 2024. And in a tragic accident, at least 45 Indians are feared dead after a bus carrying Umrah pilgrims collided with a diesel tanker near the city of Medina today. The passengers are believed to be Indian nationals, primarily hailing from the city of Hyderabad, though the official confirmations are still awaited. Following the accident, Prime Minister Narendra Modi has expressed condolences and said that his thoughts are with the families who have lost their loved ones, and also prays for the swift recovery for all those injured. Vice President, Defence Minister and External Affairs Minister, along with other Parliamentary Affairs Minister, have expressed, heartfelt condolences to the affected families. Now let's look at some more global news. US President Donald Trump has warned that any country that does business with Russia will be very severely sanctioned as his administration and Republican lawmakers push ahead with tough legislation targeting Moscow. So responding to questions from reporters on Sunday on whether it was time for Congress to pass the measures aimed at pressuring Russia and President Vladimir Putin, President Trump said that I hear they are doing that, and that's okay with me. The Trump administration has imposed 50% tariffs on India, among the highest in the world, including 25% levies for its purchases of Russian energy. Now on to some national news. A major breakthrough in the Delhi blast case. The NIA has arrested a Kashmiri resident who allegedly conspired with the suicide bomber in the attack that killed 10 people and injured 32 others. The accused, Amir Rashid Ali, was picked up from Delhi. The car used in the blast was registered in his name, and the NIA launched a massive search operation after taking over the probe from Delhi police. So the agency says that this arrest is a significant step forward in cracking the larger conspiracy behind the terror attack. The national capital woke up to dense smog on Monday morning as the average air quality index stood at 359 at 7 a.m., falling under the very poor category despite the Graded Response Action Plan 3 in effect across Delhi and the national capital region. So a layer of thick smog engulfed areas, showing little to no improvement from Sunday morning's AQI of 385, as you can see on your screens right now. Now on to a shocking case from Bengaluru. A 57-year-old woman has been duped of nearly 32 crore rupees in a digital arrest scam. So fraudsters posed a DHL staff, cybercrime official, CBI, and even RBI personnel, and kept her in virtual custody for almost 6 months. So a scam began after she received a call claiming DHL parcel in her name contained passports, credit cards, and MDMA, and that her identity had been misused. So the 57-year-old victim has made 187 transactions amounting to 31.83 crore rupees. Viewers, Nitish Kumar will take oath as Bihar Chief Minister for the 10th time on November 20th. Prime Minister Narendra Modi and other NDA leaders will attend the grand ceremony at Gandhi Maidan in Patna. The NDA secured a significant victory in the recent Bihar elections. Viewers, on to some sports news now. Kumar Sangakkara is back as Rajasthan Royals head coach for IPL 2026 while continuing as director of cricket, the franchise announced. So he previously led the team from 2021 to 2024 before Rahul Dravid took over. Under Sangakkara, Royals made it to the 2022 final and also reached the 2024 playoffs. So the franchise says that his return brings continuity and stability, highlighting his calm leadership and deep understanding of the team's culture. The coaching staff also includes Vikram Rathore, Shane Bond, Trevor Penny, and Sid Lahiri. With that, viewers, it's a wrap on this edition of Market Express, but please don't go anywhere and stay tuned to NDTV Profit.
The NDTV Profit has come a long ways.
You are the new schools and colleges which people are getting access to education from.
नहीं बढ़िया आपका काम क्या आपके तो नाम में प्रॉफिट लगा हुआ भाई.
In the world of money and markets, the real currency is clarity.
So you guys democratize information, and I think first you seeded the market, now the market is seeding you back out there.
Decisive, discerning, distinct. NDTV Profit isn't just business news.
We are like visiting faculty occasionally who come and get a chance to share what we can, but I think it's a great service.
It's the new language of markets, and the voices that move markets know it. Understand markets, decode money through the masters who shape them.
I think you're trying to get knowledge to smaller citizen towns, making it simple for retail investors. I think what you're doing is also contributing to the Indian capital markets and Indian economy.
When leaders speak of markets, they speak to NDTV Profit.
We unveil NDTV Golf Pro-Am, India's #1.
Market ends in the green with Nifty reclaiming 26,000 and Sensex gaining over 300 points. All sectors close in the green with Nifty PSU Bank Index as the gainer. Mid and small cap indices outperform the benchmarks.
I think it's a very robust market. We may try to compare with the rest of the world and try to think that we have weaknesses. It's like Sachin Tendulkar's batting.
NSE CEO Ashish Chauhan likens the Indian market to Sachin Tendulkar's batting, says we might score 100 centuries, but people will wonder why we're not hitting a 6 on every ball.
Initial public offerings have increasingly become exit vehicles for early investors rather than mechanisms for raising long-term capital.
CEA calls for scale and purpose in the Indian capital market, says IPOs have increasingly become exit vehicles rather than long-term growth vehicles.
With the introduction of the offer document summary, the requirements of abridged prospectus will be dispensed with, reducing the compliance requirements of the issuers.
SEBI Chief Tuhin Kanta Pandey stresses on the importance of diversity in the capital market, says exits and fundraisers will vary from IPO to IPO, adds that both the aspects are equally important. India and the US remain engaged in discussions on the trade deal, says Commerce Secretary Rajesh Agrawal expects part of the agreement that covers reciprocal tariffs to happen sooner rather than later. Major gas pipeline leak disrupts domestic supply to several parts of Mumbai and Navi Mumbai, leading to long waits at CNG pumps. Damage to the main gas pipeline impacted gas supply to MGL station in Badala. Anil Ambani skips Enforcement Directorate summon for the second time, says he always served as a non-executive director at Reliance Infrastructure and was not in charge of the day-to-day operations of the company. Once again offers to appear via virtual appearance. Nitish Kumar is set to take oath as the Chief Minister of Bihar on the 20th of November. Sources say the BJP will have 2 Deputy Chief Ministers in the new government. Ram Vilas Paswani's Lok Janshakti Party is likely to get 2 to 3 ministerial berths. A bus-tanker collision in Saudi Arabia near Medina claims the lives of 42 Indians. Reports say most passengers on the bus were from Hyderabad in Telangana. Consulate General of India in Jeddah sets up a 24/7 control room with a helpline. Bangladesh tribunal sentences former Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina on 3 counts: incitement, order to kill and failing to take action against perpetrators and liable to be punished.
welcome. A very good evening. This is Profit 360 on NDTV Profit, and I'm your host, Malika Mishra. Along the next half an hour, we'll bring you up to speed on markets as well as national and international news. Let's begin with checking how the markets fared first. Markets ended higher after Nifty reclaimed its 26,000 mark, Bank Nifty hit a record intraday and crossed the 59,000 mark as well. All sectoral indices closed in the green, and PSU Bank Index gained over 1% for the day. But for more details on how the overall market looked like today,